All right, welcome to Life Extension Live. So happy you can join us today. I'm your host, Dr. Mike, and this is my co-host,
Dr. Crystal.
Dr. Crystal. Did you know more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's? And 1 in 3 older individuals die with Alzheimer's or some sort of other dementia. And here's a big kicker. 4 out of 10 people, only 4 out of 10 will talk to their doctors about concerns they have maybe of losing cognition,
Right.
losing memory.
It's a scary thing when you realize maybe this is me, or maybe my family member. I'm noticing signs, but hopefully this show will give you some hope that there are cues to look for, risk factors that you can target, as well as some genetic testing that can give you an idea of your level of risk.
Yeah, so we're going to look at theories and action steps for those theories and other lifestyle stuff. So stick around. I think there's going to be some good information here for you to apply directly in your life or a loved one's life.
Yes.
All right. So on today's show, we're going to talk about Alzheimer's in general real quickly, and then we're going to dive right on in to our ways to lower risk with some of our action steps. So let's get right into this. Alzheimer's disease, Dr. Crystal. Give us your little quick rundown. Like, how would you, if you were on a test and they said, what's Alzheimer's disease? What would you write real quick?
Well, it's a form of dementia that affects memory, thinking, behavior. One thing that we see is that it progresses slowly, which is a little different than some other forms of dementia that may be due to restricted blood flow, maybe after a stroke, where it's just sudden type of thing. Right. But this is,
it's gradual and slow, which makes it hard for a lot of loved ones, right? If you know somebody with Alzheimer's, it's a slow, year after year after year type decline, and it can be very tough. So I think what we're going to talk about today is good for everyone, right? We want to live forever-ish, and we want you to live forever-ish. Oh, we got a cool little graphic right here.
Because those are the neurons. They die. You talked about the shrinking brain.
As a radiologist.
Because you have these nerve cells that are dying.
Yeah, and what you're seeing there are these like nerve cell connections, and what happens, we don't know why, they get damaged and they start to dump out these abnormal proteins. They're called beta amyloid or amyloid beta, whatever which way you want to say. I say it both ways.
Yes.
There's these tangles, tau proteins. Just to know, it's just all abnormal proteins being dumped out into that extracellular space, and then that kind of clogs the highways, and your brain cells can't talk to each other.
Right,
and, that's
and
where
the immune system is activated trying to clear it out. And so when you will look
there's
at
a good
theories,
picture of it. Look at that.
Yes,
that's awesome.
And so the immune system knows, hey, that is not normal.
It's not normal. We got to fight it.
Amyloid beta should not be here. And so that's kind of some of the things that you see. But we do know that those tangles, the amyloid beta proteins, those are hallmarks of Alzheimer's. Now, we don't know the chicken before the cart.
It's still not really the chicken before the egg. Chicken before the cart. What is
I don't know.
The chicken before, we don't really know what's really going on at the end of the day. So they are, they help us to diagnose. So there's a shrinking brain as a radiologist. That was one of the things we could really look at. But here's what's interesting. A lot of the drugs are targeting those abnormal proteins to get rid of them.
Yes.
And when you do that, it turns out that doesn't help that much. So there's so much we really don't know.
Right.
So let's get into this. What we're going to do first, we're going to go into the top theories of why people develop Alzheimer's, and then we're going to have an action step for each one, right?
Yes.
We're going to look at genetics, inflammation and immune, oxidative stress, infections, and homocysteine. So let's start with genetics. What do you got there?
Well, first, let's talk about family history. We know genetics is involved because patients with a first-degree relative with dementia have a 10 to 30% increased risk. Yeah. So let's start there. Let's talk to our family members, and we know, okay, the risk is there. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you're going to develop but the risk is there. Yeah. And then we also have the early onset. Now, Dr. Mike, this is early onset Alzheimer's.
And these are the real sad cases, right?
Right. It is rare.
Thank God.
Only 1% would be classified as the early onset. And we do know there are 3 specific genes involved with early onset. If you have those genes, you're guaranteed to get Alzheimer's.
Yeah. So that's definitely a genetic familial connection. But the most common one, which by far the most diagnosed, is the late onset. And late meaning really just, I think, later in life for the most part.
Yes.
Later in life. Now, there are some genetic components to the late onset Alzheimer's as well, right?
Yes. One in particular is the ApoE gene.
Yeah.
The ApoE gene is involved with cholesterol metabolism or transport in the body, but it's also connected to the development of Alzheimer's. There are different variants. The ApoE4 in particular does have an increased risk, or it's involved with an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. We do know that ApoE4 variation there is impaired clearance in those
the
amyloid plaques.
Yeah.
We also see impaired antioxidant defense systems.
Yeah.
So there's more oxidative stress damage occurring to
when you
neurons.
Have this variant, the
right,
APO4,
when you have that variant.
APO4.
And now, and just to clarify, this is late onset. If you have this variant, it does not mean you are going to develop Alzheimer's disease, but the risk is there. The lifestyle choices,
this is where that becomes important.
Right.
Yeah,
it's guiding your lifestyle choices.
So for the genetic theory, what is our action step? Boom. There it is. Test it, right? What that means is there's genetic testing now.
Yes.
Looking at ApoE as an example.
Yes.
Right. Matter of fact, I think we're going to talk about that at the end of the show.
Yes,
yeah.
we will.
So we have a link coming up. We'll share with you to get a nice little discount on that test. So that's the key thing. Testing is key, because now if you do have the APO4, it's now important to really kick in those lifestyle and nutrient suggestions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next theory. This is inflammation and immune abnormalities.
Yes.
Again, you already mentioned this. So like when the amyloid stuff gets high, remember those abnormal proteins, right? They're being dumped out into the brain, interfering with the nerve highways. The immune system sees that as foreign, as weird.
Yes.
And so it wants to actually start to clear that stuff out.
Yeah.
But there's a problem in that clearance for some people, right?
Right. And there's one particular pro-inflammatory protein that's kind of coming in to try to help out, but ends up causing more inflammation
it doesn't help.
in the brain.
It doesn't actually help.
Right. TNF alpha. You also see this elevated with rheumatoid arthritis, but you see it elevated in the brain. And so our action step here
is
target inflammation with curcumin.
Take curcumin.
Curcumin directly targets TNF alpha.
A nice natural way to do that. You know, a lot of the pharmaceutical commercials you'll see for rheumatoid, autoimmune, a lot of those drugs are targeting TNF alpha, right?
Yes, like Enbrel.
Yeah, Enbrel, yeah. So curcumin is a nice natural way to calm that TNF alpha down and address this theory of immune and immune dysfunction, right?
Yes. Okay,
let's go on to theory number 3, oxidative stress. We talk about this a lot, right?
Right. Oxidative stress. I think the way you describe it, I love Dr. Mike, is the buildup of free radicals over time.
Yeah.
Right? Oxidative stress happens every day. We're exposed to the sun, the pollution.
Breathing. Making cell energy creates oxidants.
Right. And so it's normal. The body has a normal process to deal with it. But when that damage, those free radicals build up over time, of course, in the brain, you're having brain damage. So our action step for oxidative stress,
obviously brain antioxidants.
Now I love how Dr. Mike, off camera, on camera, he's brilliant. Off camera, I think he's even more brilliant, because we were talking about this, and not just any antioxidants. You said the ones that we know can get into the brain.
That can cross the blood-brain barrier, and the best example of those are the ones you take for eye care. Your optic nerve is coming from the brain. I mean, it's literally an extension of the brain. And so if there are antioxidants that are good for your eye, and they're getting into the retina, they're getting into that nerve, they're going to pass into the brain, and that's going to be lutein. Well, we're going to get into it. Are we going to get that later?
Well, yeah, we could.
We'll tease them.
Give a quick overview. The carotenoids.
The carotenoids. There, we'll leave it at that.
Yes. Okay.
Carotenoids, and we'll talk more about that coming up. Okay, let's go on to the next theory. This is infections. Now, this is an odd one because for me, it's more of an association that we're finding, and that's an important point here. These are all just theories. We're not. Most likely, it's multifactorial.
Yes.
That Alzheimer's, just like heart disease, it's not like heart disease is not just cholesterol, right? I mean, there's so many other risk. It's the same thing here with Alzheimer's. And so infections are this weird one. I'll tell you when I learned about this, right? I was doing this big presentation for a pharmacy school here in South Florida about Alzheimer's. And I came across some really cool research about infections, specifically with spirochetes, which are the ones that are involved with like the ticks.
Yes. Like
Lyme disease. I know. I almost forgot Lyme disease. So spirochetes have been cultured out of, it's like 95% of Alzheimer's patients' sinuses.
Wow.
That's like really interesting stuff.
And you've talked about this before.